Okay, let's unpack this. Think about the last time you faced a problem. Maybe big, maybe small.
Hmm.
What was the very first solution that just, you know, popped into your head? The one that felt most obvious?
Yeah, our brains are pretty good at finding that path of least resistance, aren't they? That first idea is usually the easiest one to grab.
Absolutely. It feels intuitive, right? Like, uh-huh,
Yeah,
that's it.
totally.
But here's the thing. Maybe. How often is that initial obvious idea truly the best idea? Or, and this is interesting, the most original one,
Hmm.
the sources we're diving into today suggest, well, maybe not as often as we might think.
And that's exactly what we're exploring today in this deep dive. We're looking at this principle called Kidlin's law.
Kidlin's law.
Okay,
Okay.
and our sources state it quite simply, actually. If a solution to a problem is obvious, it's usually not original.
Right. So putting that into just plain English, the
Yeah.
first idea, the most straightforward one you come up with,
Yeah.
it's likely the one loads of other people have thought of or maybe even tried before. Finding something really new, something, original, means you have to look past that obvious answer, sometimes way past it.
Precisely. And our mission today in this deep dive is to really dig into that idea.
Okay.
We'll use some real-world examples, specific facts pulled right from the source material to show why this law matters, where it pops up,
Mm.
and maybe most importantly, how you can use this to sharpen your own thinking.
Because this isn't just some abstract theory, is it?
No, not at all.
Understanding Kidlin's law can genuinely change how you approach challenges. In your work, maybe your creative stuff, or just navigating the world.
Yeah, it pushes you beyond just the easy answer towards potentially, much more powerful solutions.
Okay, so let's expand a bit on what this law really means and why our sources seem to think it's so important.
Well, they use a great analogy. Imagine your computer is running super slow, frustratingly slow.
Okay, happens all the time.
Right. What's the immediate obvious thing most of us do?
Hey, restart. It's the go-to fix, isn't it?
It is. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes that does work. But as the source points out, it's often just treating the symptom.
Ah,
The real problem could be much deeper, like a failing hard drive, maybe, or some sneaky malware just eating up resources.
right. So the obvious fix was superficial. It didn't actually solve the underlying thing.
Exactly. It didn't get to the root cause.
And that simple principle, I guess it scales up, right?
It really does.
The source says this law is important for a few key reasons. First, it fundamentally encourages innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just settle for the obvious, you're basically doing what everyone else is doing or has done.
True innovation means going off the beaten path.
It does. It also makes you a better problem solver, generally. By questioning that first easy answer,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of training yourself to look for root causes, to find more effective, lasting solutions, not just those quick fixes.
Which naturally leads to the third point they make.
Yeah.
It boosts critical thinking
Mm-hmm.
significantly.
Yeah, because you're challenging your own initial assumptions. You're forcing yourself to consider, a wider range of possibilities instead of just grabbing the first thing your brain serves up.
It's fascinating how consistently this pattern seems to play out
Yeah.
across totally different fields, different kinds of problems.
It really is. So let's transition now and actually walk through some of the specific examples our source material highlights.
Great.
For each one, we'll look at what the obvious solutions seemed to be back then,
Okay.
and then contrast it with the truly original breakthrough, plus maybe a cool fact or detail from the source to bring it to life.
Sounds good. Let's rewind. Late 19th century. People wanted better lighting than, candles or gas lamps.
Right.
What was the obvious approach everyone was focused on?
Pretty straightforward, really. Just make the existing lamps brighter,
Yeah.
improve the gas burners, maybe refine the arc lamps. That felt like the logical next step, didn't it? Just better illumination tech.
But Thomas Edison and his team,
Hmm.
they didn't just try to make the existing stuff brighter.
Yep.
Their original solution was completely different. Create a practical, long-lasting, incandescent light bulb.
Right, with a durable filament inside a vacuum. A whole new thing.
And the source gives us this incredible detail.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Edison tested over 6,000 different materials to find the right filament.
6,000. Eventually landing on carbonized bamboo, which could burn for over 1,200 hours.
Wow.
So, like you said, this wasn't just turning up the brightness. It was a deep dive into material science, electrical engineering,
Yeah.
to create a fundamentally new, usable product for homes. Completely original.
Okay, let's jump forward.
Yeah.
Dawn of the automobile age. Early cars. Super expensive, hand-built by skilled craftspeople.
Right, luxury items almost.
So if you wanted to make more cars, what was the obvious way to scale up?
Well, you'd think train more craftsmen, right? Find their individual techniques, maybe build bigger workshops.
Improve the craftsmanship process itself. Scale the existing model.
Exactly. But Henry Ford, his stroke of genius, his original solution, was the assembly line.
Ah, the system.
Yes. He didn't just improve the craft, he totally reinvented the system of building cars.
And the fact from the source really hammers home the impact, doesn't it?
It really does. It points out the assembly line slashed the time to assemble a Model T from about 12 hours.
12 hours.
Down to just 90 minutes.
Incredible.
That wasn't just, a small improvement. It was a revolution in manufacturing, all driven by looking beyond the obvious craft-based approach.
Okay, how about retail? Before the internet really took off commercially, if you wanted to sell stuff, the obvious solution was a physical store, brick and mortar.
That was the paradigm. To sell more, you opened more stores, maybe made them bigger, improved your displays.
Right. But Jeff Bezos, looking at the early internet, he saw something else, an original opportunity.
Yeah, instead of just improving physical stores, he decided to leverage the internet itself to create this vast online bookstore.
Which, as the source reminds us, started in '94 and then just exploded way beyond books, didn't it?
Oh yeah, becoming the global e-commerce giant we know. He didn't just build a better bookstore, he created an entirely new business model. Challenged that core assumption that retail had to be physical.
That's a great example. What about medicine? Penicillin.
Yes.
Before antibiotics, dealing with bacterial infections. The obvious ways were things like, cleaning wounds really well with antiseptics.
Right, rigorous cleaning, maybe surgery sometimes. Those were the main tools against bacteria.
But Alexander Fleming's key observation in 1928,
Yeah.
that was his original contribution, wasn't it?
Absolutely original. He noticed something others might have just washed away or ignored completely.
Which was?
Mold. Growing in a petri dish of bacteria, and it was actually killing the bacteria around it.
Just a chance observation almost.
But a crucial one. That non-obvious detail about Penicillium notatum led to the world's first widely used antibiotic.
And the source notes the huge impact, saving millions of lives, especially during World War II.
Immense impact. It wasn't an improvement on cleaning. It was a fundamental biological discovery that changed medicine forever.
Okay, so Kidlin's law even applies to something really personal, like how we try to be more productive.
It does.
What's the most common, obvious thing people think they need to do to get more done?
Oh, easy. Just work longer hours. Put in more time. Push harder, right?
Seems like the most direct route, doesn't it? More hours should equal more output.
Feels logical. But our source includes this fascinating fact from Stanford University's studies showing that productivity per hour actually declines sharply once someone works more than about 50 hours a week.
So working longer isn't necessarily working smarter.
Exactly. The original solution isn't necessarily more hours, but smarter hours. Things like better time management, making sure you take effective breaks, prioritizing ruthlessly. It's a different way of framing the whole productivity problem.
Okay, let's look up space exploration. For decades, the obvious accepted reality was that rockets were just expendable.
Yeah, single use, you launch them, get to space, and the expensive lower stages just get discarded in the ocean or burn up.
That was just seen as a fundamental cost of doing business in space.
Pretty much. But SpaceX came along with a truly original solution. Reusable rocket boosters.
Making them land again.
Making them land. And the impact is huge. The source points out that being able to land and reuse the Falcon 9's first stage has dramatically cut the cost of space launches.
Opening up all sorts of new possibilities.
Absolutely, by directly challenging that obvious assumption about rockets being single-use. Just incredible engineering.
Okay, software development. For a long time, the obvious way to manage big, complex projects was the waterfall model.
Right. Plan everything meticulously up front, define all the requirements, then build it step by step in a strict linear sequence.
Makes logical sense on paper, you know? Build the blueprint, then build the house.
Seems orderly.
Yeah.
But the original solution that proved way more effective for many projects was agile methodology.
Agile.
Yeah, this involved iterative development, working in shorter cycles, constantly getting feedback and adapting as you go. Much more flexible.
And the source highlights the agile techniques, which really took off after the Agile Manifesto in 2001.
Yeah.
They drastically improved projects' ability to adapt to change and actually reduced failure rates for complex software.
So the obvious linear plan wasn't always the best fit, especially for dynamic digital stuff. Agile offered this flexible, original alternative.
Here's a great urban planning example, New York City's High Line.
Ah, love the High Line.
When that elevated freight railway line became obsolete, what was the obvious thing to do?
Tear it down, right? Demolish the unused, probably decaying infrastructure. That's the standard playbook for old industrial structures in cities.
Clear the site, build something new. But the original, really inspired
It
solution,
was to convert it into a public park, a greenway high above the street.
and the fact really shows the power of that original idea. Since opening in 2009, the High Line's become this hugely popular public space.
Oh yeah, boosting tourism, nearby property values. It was creative reuse that completely bypassed the obvious conclusion that the railway was just scrap metal.
Amazing. Finally, let's touch on AI communication, the early, obvious approach to building chatbots.
Super simple, scripted responses. If the user says X, the bot is programmed to say Y, rule-based.
Effective for very narrow things, maybe, but feels rigid pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, very unnatural for real conversation. Today's AI, the kind powering much more nuanced dynamic chat that uses deep learning models.
And the source specifically mentions the transformer model, introduced around 2017.
Right, which revolutionized natural language processing. It allowed AI to understand context much better, generate more human-like text, powering models like GPT.
So that's a massive lead, isn't it? Beyond the obvious scripting to this complex, contextual, truly original approach to communication.
It really is. And looking at all these examples together, light bulbs, assembly lines, online shopping, penicillin productivity, reusable rockets, agile, the Highline AI, the pattern is just incredibly clear.
Absolutely. In every single case, the truly transformative breakthrough didn't come from just tweaking the obvious approach.
Yep.
It came from someone or a team looking past that first idea, questioning the assumptions, exploring completely different paths, maybe applying insights from unexpected places.
So what does this pattern mean for you listening right now? How can you take Kidlin's law and apply it to the challenges you face?
Whether they're, big professional hurdles or just figuring out a better way to organize your week.
It really starts with recognizing that first obvious answer for what it probably is, common, maybe even mundane.
And then, as the source material kind of implicitly encourages, challenging yourself to go deeper.
Yeah.
When an obvious solution pops up, just pause. Ask yourself, is this just the easiest answer? What assumptions am I making here?
Mm-hmm. What entirely different approaches could there be that maybe aren't immediately apparent?
It's about training your mind, isn't it? To look beyond the surface.
Yeah, not being satisfied with the first thought, but really digging for those deeper or more creative possibilities that might be hiding.
So to wrap things up then, Kidlin's law is a really powerful lens, I think.
Yeah.
The obvious solution is rarely the original one.
Right.
And it's those original solutions that often lead to the biggest leaps forward.
History shows it again and again. Breakthroughs that truly transform society, making light accessible, cutting the cost of reaching space, they happen because people looked past what everyone else saw first.
So here's the thought to leave you with, really echoing the spirit of the source material. Since originality lives beyond the obvious,
Yeah.
how will you practice looking deeper? How will you question that first easy idea and maybe foster a bit more creativity in your own problem solving?
Keep exploring, keep questioning. That's really where the truly interesting stuff is usually waiting to be found.